2025 has been a bit of a mixed bag for JRPGs. We've seen some absolute masterpieces, games that felt like they were made by fans for fans, some that start strong and fizzle out, and others that are downright boring to play. As someone who adores the Persona series and turn-based RPGs as a whole, although I certainly don't consider myself a connoisseur, I'd like to think I have a fairly good feel for what works and what doesn't. The Digimon Story Time Stranger demo had me hopeful, really hopeful, we were going to end 2025 as strong as we started, but then it made me fall asleep twice. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 played like a love letter to Final Fantasy while making the genre its own by incorporating a whole host of unique mechanics. Persona 5 The Phantom X went from being a game I couldn't put down to one that I actively detested. Yes, it's free, but there are plenty of other free-to-play games that are far less arduous to play. And that brings me to Digimon Story Time Stranger, which at least in the demo reminds me a lot of the Tales of series, in all the best and worst ways.
Now.
Hey, thanks.
What? Are you sure? Oh! Much appreciated.
As per usual, I always like to talk about my history not only with the genre but its source material. It's a very important point to make since it provides a lot of context to my opinions. As I said, I love turn-based RPGs and JRPGs, with 300 plus hours in Persona 5/Persona 5 Royale and roughly 130 in Persona 3 Reload to name drop two of the most prominent. As for Digimon, I played one game back on the PS1 some 20 plus years ago, which was also around the same time I stopped watching the cartoon on Cheese TV. Although not the biggest Digimon fan around, clearly, I was having an absolute great time within the first 20 minutes or so of the demo, which ended in me falling asleep near the end of the stream twice during a fucking combat encounter. The demo, which took roughly 90 minutes to complete, not including the battle arena mode that unlocks after you complete the demo's main content, it's certainly not a waste of time if you're a Digimon fan, but if you're not, based purely on this demo, I doubt there's anything here worth checking out. Starting the demo, we choose our character's gender with no options for customization, but we're treated to a pretty damn good cutscene, which really reminds me that JRPG music is at the forefront of the industry at the moment, producing banger after banger. Music aside, the art direction is fairly standard fare for this genre, with only the faces of NPCs proving to be a little bit disappointing. Only those we can interact with have eyes, a nose, and a mouth. The rest of the population are faceless abominations, who aside from being discomforting, also act as completely immersion breaking. Our character works for a company called Adamas who investigate abnormal phenomena, and it's up to us to investigate the latest in a series of events that have been causing the local population to experience a whole range of negative emotions. Now, the backbone of the narrative is fairly cliche but also really good, with our character needing to enter an exclusion zone, which is the giant walled-off ruined part of the city, the result of one particularly huge abnormal phenomena. Now, ask anyone who's not a fan of turn-based RPGs why they avoid them, and they'll likely use words like monotonous or grindy. They'll tell you that the combat loop becomes a chore, an endless cycle of repetition. And based on the demo for Digimon Story Time Stranger, it's going to be really difficult to argue against them. The core loop here feels less like a strategic dance and more like a metronome, just ticking away with a frustratingly familiar rhythm. It's a system that in its current state actively feels like it's fighting against any real sense of engaging combat flow. But before your first ever encounter, you get to choose from one of three starting Digimon. Now these come in three types: Data, Virus, and Antivirus, with each Digimon having a unique element like Dark or Water. This is the core foundation of combat, with Digimon having a weakness and strength to certain types and elements. Having the right combination of both can mean a 200% boost to your attack damage, or it could mean you do absolutely nothing at all if you have the wrong combination. So having at least one type of each Digimon is the easiest way to ensure you're not stuck in a drawn-out battle of attrition. You can also customize the stats of your Digimon with different accessories. Some accessories even give your Digimon new abilities. There's also a Digi-Evolve mechanic allowing you to evolve your Digimon into a variety of different forms based on your level and stat traits. You can also de-Digi-Evolve for some reason. I didn't quite understand why, although I do remember it being part of the show. So, from that perspective, there's a lot of wiggle room to build your team to your own personal playstyle. There's also a convert system, whereby data you've collected on Digimon during your battles can be converted into a copy of that Digimon. They can then be added into your bank for storage or kept on your reserve team. All of this is done in your main menu and doesn't rely on you having to head back to a home base. So far, fairly positive, and that's how I felt up until about the halfway point when I encountered this set piece, and I use that terminology incredibly lightly. This was taken from my live stream, and anyway, I'm just going to let the footage play for itself and you'll see. Oh shit, okay. What? What? Yeah, I played a little bit Elden Ring. It wasn't for me. That was a weird section.
Hey, over here!
That was a very bizarre little section. So yeah, somewhat innocuous at first glance. You're running away from a giant evil Digimon. Except it's incredibly short, barely a minute of gameplay. Speaking of gameplay, there's none. There's nothing to dodge, no need to move left or right, just pull the left thumbstick towards you. It's kind of difficult for me to pinpoint why this moment in particular shattered the glass on my overall impression for Digimon STS, something I struggled to claw back from. Suddenly, small things started becoming obtuse, like the sound effects during battle which were lacking, the same noises over and over again, or the combat loop which was far too one-dimensional. It's a bizarre and frustrating paradox because the individual pieces are actually quite good. The character models look sharp, the skill animations are genuinely fantastic, each one looks like it was given the time and care it deserves. It's a testament to the developer's skill and a real high point in the combat. But these brief flashes of brilliance only serve to highlight the game's deeper issues. The smooth, well-made animations only underscore the clunky, unengaging nature of the core loop and the overall lack of any dynamic feeling. The voiceless main character was really annoying because our mouths would be moving in a cutscene but nothing was coming out. All of this added up to me falling asleep in the final combat encounter of the demo, simply because it was that fucking boring. And dare I say the developers may be aware of this too, because you can adjust the battle speed in-game up to 5 times normal speed, something I haven't really seen outside of free-to-play mobile games. So after slogging through the slow combat and uninspired environments, the demo for Digimon Story Time Stranger ends with a highlight reel of what's to come. And it's an incredibly bizarre moment, honestly. It's a montage of stunning vistas, fantastical set pieces, and high-octane action. And for a brief moment, I was taken back to those first 20 minutes of the demo. But this isn't what I played through, because this feels less like a taste of the game and more like a desperate plea, a promise. Hey, it gets better, don't worry, just get through this first part. But when the first part of your game is this dull, that promise rings hollow. A demo shouldn't just be a promise, it should also be an example. The Digimon Story Time Stranger demo is the opening 90 minutes of the full release, with our demo's save file carrying over to the main game. But for me, this segment isn't entirely accurate to the experience after that 90-minute mark. And in that case, you're doing your game a bit of a disservice. Plenty of other games treat their demos in the same manner. Take Final Fantasy XVI or Tales of Arise. The Final Fantasy XVI demo ends with teenage Clive being taken away into slavery, and the full release opens with adult Clive, now a slave. The Tales of Arise demo allowed us to fight the first ever boss. Both examples showed us what we could expect from the main game. It didn't show us a less boring, less interesting, and overall worst version of what's to come. Now, despite my frustrations with the demo, I still hold a glimmer of hope for the full release. The narrative hints at some interesting twists and turns, and the promise of a far more dynamic experience is certainly there. However, if this demo is a true representation of the entire combat loop, then my fears are that the game's core experience will remain a slow and unfulfilling one. For a game that relies so heavily on its battles, that's a significant problem. So if we're judging the potential of a game on its merits of its demo alone, my advice is simple. Unless you're a die-hard Digimon fan, it would be wise to wait for the reviews on day one and just don't pre-order whatever you do. Anyway, that's it for this demo space video. Thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot to me. No matter where you are in the world, stay safe. We're all human after all, and have a good day.